October 10th. In this video, I want to give you guys an update of these ponds. And we're going to start in the reservoir pond, which I'm in now. And then we'll move to the big pond or natural swimming pool afterwards. And I thought I'd share some insights and some observations and some things that I'm really looking forward to with these ponds. Okay, so I'm in the second pond right now. And this is that pond that's downhill from the main pond. And the main pond, is just straight up there. We can see the Keyway Dam there, which is holding it very nicely, I might add. We'll go look at it closer in a minute, or in a few minutes. And I'm in the second pond, which this is a really cool collection point on my property. It's right at the lowest point of a primary draw that drops down. I'll put a Google Earth image in of it, and I'll kind of draw it in there so you can see. But this is the lowest point where water can saturate and sit for a while before it carries on through the main draw and spills over in the way that it always has. This pond is really neat because we didn't have to build any infrastructure for this pond. All we had to do is take stuff out, and all the stuff we took out was really good silt, sand, and clay with very little rocks that has built up in here from many, many thousands of years of erosion coming down this top watershed that I'm in this small mountain range. And what that watershed is an area where, as the snow melts, it'll all move to a collection point, which is often referred to as a riparian area or a draw, like what we are in this case. And we're in this primary draw, which is super cool because all the water will passively come here first as it melts and even as it rains. It'll all come here. And I'm not worried about filling this pond up like I'm filling up the other pond right now. This pond, I have zero worries about as far as its ability or capacity to hold water. Because as I said, we didn't build anything up in here. All we did was take material away. And I'm on bedrock. I'm on bedrock here. It starts to go up there along another ridge that closes all of this in. Same on this side, same on this side. Look at this, bedrock's even coming up. So I'm 100%, unless there's some, anomalous fracture in a rock that can take water away, I'm not worried that that's going to happen. Even the nice thing about silty soil, I'll add, is that it very quickly moves and collects and seals in areas. So I'm not worried about this pond draining at all. And so, show you a couple things here. So I was just in here with the laser level because I've wanted to figure out how low the lowest point in this pond is compared to, I have this little watershed up here, and I've showed this in many vlogs in the past. And this is something that came with this property. And, I'll splice some images of it in here. There's a culvert underneath a little stair, and they put it there. They could have put it here too, but they put it there, and then they built a 40,000 liter concrete cistern, which is essentially the foundation of this little storage shed area, which I've done nothing with since I've moved here except fix this staircase. But that culvert in there goes down 7.5 feet, 90 inches, I believe. And I wanted to figure out where that was in proximity to this pond, because this pond is going to be used to fill the main pond, especially in the snow melt season, the spring, and perhaps part of the summer. I think I'll be able to hold on to water in this pond for a while because there's a lot of trees around it, so it's not going to get a lot of evaporation. It's actually very difficult to even see from the sky from a drone shot. So there'll be abundance of water here that I can pump uphill. As I found out, though, I can seemingly fill that pond with my well because I've got a well that just produces the same amount of water year-round every day. It's pretty amazing, pretty blessed to have that. But needless to say, I wanted to figure out where that level was because in that culvert system, or in that culvert, it's called a pit well, essentially. In that pit well, I've got a submersible pump down below, just tied to 120 volts of electricity. It's a sump pump basically for a house, and it comes out at a 3/4 I'm going to go pull it up though. It might be a 1 inch. I'm hoping it's a 1 inch because then I'll use a 1 inch line opposed to a 3/4 inch line. And I'll be able to pump that water from the culvert right up to the pond. Now, the only advantage to doing that over doing it here is that it's less materials and it's already there. So I'm always trying to address weakest links on my system. And if a link isn't weak, it doesn't need to be addressed. Thus, I don't have to spend time on it. I don't have to dedicate resources to it. That's important. And so, because originally I had thought that I would, and I talked about this in a previous video actually, that I've got another well pump, which could pump water faster, but it would need more electricity and it would need a longer wire to get here. I could put a well pump in here at this lowest point, which is right here. And I'll talk about what all these mean in a minute. And then I could pump that up to the pond. So it would be faster, but it would require more electricity. Electricity is not that much of an issue because during the time that we're pumping, we have lots of electricity from solar. But the cost of wire is something to write home about. At this point, with what wire costs and the amount of gauge that I need to get down to this pump, I don't know. You could say it's $1,000, maybe. I don't know. I could be wrong on that. Take it for what it's worth. But moreover, it's really about the time it takes to do it, which my time right now is limited. I'm looking at how many days I have until the snow starts coming. And there's a number of things that I have to get done. And this was one thing I wanted to get done so that in the spring I can just use this water. But I have come to the conclusion, I'll share that with you now, that I will not need to do that because of the culvert. And so I've taken the laser level and I shot a number of levels. The first thing I did was I started with the laser over at the pump house there, the water shed. And I took a laser level to the bottom or the ground level where the culvert comes out of the ground. And then I measured with a measuring tape down 7 feet 6 inches. And then I lasered that. Then I came over here and I shot that level. I got it onto that dot on the tree, on that cedar tree there. You can see that dot right up there. That dot is the bottom of the culvert. And then I moved the laser over here. Then I readjusted the laser to that dot, and then so on and so forth. I can get really deep. And so that's what I've done. So what we're looking at in this pond, well, first let me adjust what I was talking about. So the bottom of the culvert is essentially there. And that is only 4.5 feet higher than the bottom of this pond. So this line here represents the bottom of the culvert. Now I could go and spray paint that out everywhere to really find out how much water I'd hold here, but it's not much, and I'll show you why. So that laser's right there, that level's right there. We can kind of just eyeball and go along here and go, okay, right there. Water's gonna end about here, here. It's actually a very small area of water sitting on bedrock. So there's not a lot of water outside of what you actually see. So this is negligible in my opinion. So I can now make the judgment call that no, it is not worth it going to the effort and time and cost to set up and run the electricity and to get that to the panel and do all that stuff. It is not worth the cost to do that right now. Though maybe in the future I will do it because that pond will pump more water and so on and so forth. But in my opinion, it's not really needed or justifiable at this point. So that's where, if I pump that culvert, where this water will go, because this is all connected in this draw. And that culvert in there is basically sitting in a pond, but it's filled with crush and porous material that will hold water. And so if I just keep pumping from that culvert, this pond will eventually come down to here from there. So that line there, and I've marked it all around the pond here, there, on that tree. And then right here, you can see on the top, this is the Keyway here, or this is the Keyway. And this is where the water, because here's the levels over here, it's all uphill over there. Everything over this way is uphill, except here. So this is where water, if it overflows in this pond, will exit. This is referred to the Keyway. We built a Keyway dam up at the other pond. We'll go look at that soon too. But this is the Keyway here. This is where the water keys its way through the draw and continues through my culvert system on the roads and all of that. What my pond guy did here, which was really, really, really cool, he built a beaver dam, essentially. He did what beavers do. He went to the Keyway and he put a bunch of crappy logs and deadfall trees that we had to knock over to clear this area, piled them up there and put a bunch of just rubble and riprap material, crappy material in there, and just kind of drove over it with the tracks a bunch of times. So it's not a dam that is going to hold the water like an industrial type of dam, but it's a dam that when the water comes to here, it'll slow it down and it'll start to trickle very slowly through the draw. And this is what I want to show you, which is really, really cool. Let me just change angles. So we're at the top of this Keyway here, and you can see that rock there. That's our level. So that's when this starts to flow over. But look at how much resistance it has in here. There's so many things. The water is going to spill and trickle and spread around in this very wide area. I'm not going to go through this bush right now, but this going through here gets me to my culvert system there. And actually I'll splice an image so you can see that and understand what happens when this eventually trickles through here. And it absorbs. There's so much biomass in here. There's so much humus in the soil. You know, one thing that's so lovely about forest soil, because there's a lot of things that aren't lovely about it, but one thing that's great about it, it has a high amount of humus layer, not hummus, but your humus layer. And that is a sponge that absorbs so much water. And that water in the spongy forest floor like this will actually absorb and trickle up the banks. It'll actually climb. And so this is a sponge. So I'll never have to worry about this pond just overflowing. It technically can't, because this all meets in this natural Keyway anyways. We didn't have to engineer anything except a sort of a dam break, if you will, to slow the water. And so that's really nice because, I suppose in an absolute nightmare biblical rain scenario, what might happen is if there was a breach in my Keyway dam, and I'll show you, there's 2 features there now that are going to prevent this from ever collapsing. But you never know. Let's just say something happened and we got so much rain and it was basically the end times. That would break and all that water would come rushing here. And there's a lot of opportunities for it to slow down as it splashes up in here and so on and so forth. And it would push through there and probably surge my culverts in an absolute biblical event. But we've done a number of features on this pond up here, which we'll go look at in a minute, that I'll show you how we've really covered our butts as far as something like that happening. But basically, yeah, this is what this pond is all about. It's nothing but a reservoir. I'm probably going to put some minnows in here, or I might have a low voltage electric line come out here with a bubbler just so this doesn't turn into a mosquito pond. Because even this year that we're just finishing here, this season, I should say, we had so many mosquitoes this year and it was gnarly because the water stayed in this pond for a very long time, which is a great sign. And because it was just kind of a marsh, you can't really run a bubbler or a feature like that to manage or minnows even effectively to manage that problem. But now that I've got this one big body, I can. So our mosquito pressure, because of the features in these ponds, is actually going to be better going forward. But yeah, so there's the top of our pond, all there. And so again, as this whole watershed above me melts, and I've calculated there's well over 10 million liters, probably closer to 50 million liters of water that moves through this path during my snowmelt. It's a massive amount of water, and it sometimes flows until the end of June. So it's a huge opportunity to hold a ton of water and slow it down here, put it up there, and just keep filling that up as this fills up. And then as this drains close to empty by summertime, then if I need to top up the pond, I can do it from the well. So let's go up to that other pond now. All right, so this pond is filling up good. I'd love to say it's filling up fast, but it's not. I've been pumping it every day for a while now, maybe almost 2 weeks. And my well only puts out so much, so I can only really pump 10 GPM, which is the max capacity of my well, in here at a time. And I don't want to keep this open the whole time, because then anything else that calls for water up there isn't going to get much. And so I kind of have to play this game where I turn the pump on in the morning and I and I don't leave this open. I just pump water up to the cisterns to get, I don't know, maybe 25%, at least enough that I can get some good gravity pressure down. Then I'll come down and open this maybe just halfway. And then I kind of get to a point where there's an equal amount going in as there is coming down, but that head pressure in my cistern stays. That way, when I turn on a hose anywhere in our primary working living area, I get water, or I get pressure, because I still need water at this time of year a little bit here and there. So anyways, this is, you can see where we are. Right now, one of the deepest parts of the pond is here. And you can see that's our level there, right there. I've got that around the pond, spray painted here and there, and then the bottom of those culverts is the top of the pond. The bottom of the inside of those culverts is the top of the pond. And so I know that my deepest point down here, because I lasered it from there at the beginning, was a total of 9 feet. So right now we're about 4 to 5 feet deep there. I took the kids out on the canoe yesterday, and that was a lot of fun. Though, you know, you can only do a couple strokes and then you're across the pond and you got to turn around, but the kids found it fun. And so anyways, I'm filling this up, and so far it's going very well. And I'll talk about, I've shot some levels down here to show where the water is right now. I just did that with the laser, and I'll show you guys in a minute, because we want to see. The reason I'm filling this up now is, well, one, I'd like to have a skating rink for winter. That would be kind of fun. But two, I want to fill this up before the big spring surge, when a lot happens very quickly, so that as the water comes up the banks, and you can see it happening here. See these cracks? That's what happens as water soaks into the ground around. You can see all this here, and things kind of collapse in. They kind of find their the balance point, call it the somewhat of an equilibrium of where that ground is going to settle and stay. And so that whole process has to happen. That's why we wanted to do this before spring, so that we get at least the bottom half of it settled really good. But this is going so well that I'm tempted to actually fill it up, because it's not like, if I fill it up, only rain or snow is going to fill it up and charge those culverts, and we're not likely to get that. We're just going to get snow, and then that's not going to change the level of this pond very much. So I'm kind of tempted to fill it up the whole way. We'll see if I change my opinion on that as we go. But okay, a couple features I wanted to show you on this pond that are very, very important. And one of them is just recently decided on, not fully implemented yet. So the culverts here, I've shown these in other videos. These are very important. These are 3 8-inch culverts. For this size of pond, they spec a 12-inch culvert, but we have 3 8-inches, which gives us more than 12. I forget what the number actually is, but it gives us more than 12. And these culverts are laser leveled all equally to the bottom. The bottom of the inside of the culvert is laser leveled to the top of the pond, that spray paint mark that we have there. So when water starts to overflow, it hits these culverts and it really easily moves through them, because we've got them sloped quite a bit. They it's at least 5 or more degrees, and it comes down very easily. And the great thing about the system is that as these culverts fill up and this goes through, it hits bedrock, and this container will be gone eventually, hopefully this fall, but definitely by the spring or summer next year. And it wouldn't even matter anyways. Water would just push through here and just go through this way here, right into the other pond. There's some stuff in the way, but it doesn't matter. We're most likely, unless we get a biblical event, we're most likely not going to see these ever surge, but they're there for that reason. And the great thing is that these culverts come out in a place that will not compromise the Keyway Dam. And this is perhaps the most important structural feature on this pond. But the water comes out and goes, and it just goes down. So it's cleared of the Keyway Dam. This is the most important thing on the pond that we built, and it's holding up very nicely. And I'll show you how. We'll jump down there in a minute. What I did was I took a laser level of the water right now and then marked that level on a couple places down here. We'll go down there and I'll show you and you'll see it better. But so the Keyway Dam is a keyway that's cut into the native ground when we were digging this. Right down to native ground, we cut a keyway with the cleanup bucket of the excavator. Then we pack that keyway with a packer, big roller packer. Then they bring material in and pack and wet, spread and wet it, and then pack it 1 foot lift at a time. And we did this for this whole, it's 9 feet or more, it's technically 12 feet high from where the bottom of that water, the bottom of the pond would be. And it's where the water would flow over, just like down there. We talked about the Keyway and that where the water just naturally goes as part of the draw that exists. It's the same here. It's all high ground, all above, and it's all bedrock right to there and to here, which is so cool. And that's where we put the Keyway in. So the Keyway is locked with bedrock on all sides. So this is the area that will take the most amount of hydrostatic pressure when, this is the structured area that will take the most amount of hydrostatic pressure that could be potentially compromised. That's why these are so important. And that's why this next feature I'm going to show you is so important. So we have our primary spillway. So if this is full and we're getting a big rain event or something like that, these are just going to start spilling over there. If we got some kind of, call it a biblical event, an event that we haven't seen here in 1,000 years, what will happen is those will max out. So only a certain amount of water will be able to go in there. And as that water level rises over our lasered level here, what I'm going to do is cut in another spillway here, but this won't be a culvert. And it's already actually here, which is kind of cool. It's hard. You can kind of see the ground goes like this. So I haven't decided what it'll be yet. It'll be maybe 6 inches or a foot above what this level is. And I'll carve that down with my excavator, and it'll just be an open area. And it goes down here. It will go down and go around the whole Keyway Dam. So it's another way, just like with those culverts, of avoiding or compromising the Keyway Dam. And so, I could do it with culverts too, but I like the idea of doing this with just land and then packing that land, putting rocks and gravel on it and stuff. So even at the most compromisable point, which would be say here, it's not gonna take a lot of erosion. But fortunately, you could take a lot of erosion there, because the place you don't want to erode the most is the center of the Keyway Dam. On the edge here, in a biblical event, it's not that big of a deal, because you're coming now, this is getting deeper. So that's what's going to happen. It's going to be another positive swale, essentially. So just a swale that goes 1 or 2% down, it's all packed, and then the water would just naturally charge through. Then it's an open cavity, so it's far more surface area than these culverts could handle. So that's going to be our sort of emergency spillway. That's how that's going to look. I've got some material here because I got to build this up a bit more, and just because when I drive in here, and I don't need to drive in here for long, but it wrecks this, and so I need to build this up with some good, I call this rocky riprap. This material is everywhere on my property, and it's so good for the base of roads. I use it for packing, all kinds of things. And so that's what I'm going to do there. But yeah, that's how this pond is looking. I've done a number of landscaping features. Like I've built this area up in here. My idea is that, you can see the top of the water is just where the knob of this rock is. It'd be really neat to just walk in here and then just jump in. And it's the deepest point, so I built that up with rocks. I've been doing the same here, just putting bigger rock material there. Just why not, right? You could do it all on this bank, and I'll probably do it forever. Anytime I have a bunch of big rock material that I have no other better use for, I'll just pile it up in here. And you could, if this pond was more engineered, you could do this in concrete too. I've certainly seen that, where you'll do this whole Keyway area in concrete. And maybe there's a case for that. It would certainly be expensive. But so far, this Keyway Dam is holding up really well. So let me show you that. So I took my laser and then I took a shot of the height of that water, zeroed my level. This is such a handy tool. If you're ever in a building project, having a laser level, especially a good one like these Stabilas. This is the LAR 350. It's so useful in carpentry and landscaping and earth moving and gardening, building terraces, everything. I use this tool so much. So I've lasered out right there, that paint there. That's the top of our water right now. And then this comes down here. So that's top of water right there as well. And coming over to by the culverts, that's top of water there. Where I'm standing here, that is about shoulder height for me. Maybe kind of nipple height of my chest. And so right down here, there's no water seeping through this Keyway Dam. It's working perfectly. And of course, let's keep going. Let's see how much more pressure we can get. But you can see, so that's our top of water right there. And then that's our top of water right now. And then that's where topper water wants to go or will go. So I'm tempted just to do it because the nice thing about the way I'm filling this right now is it's very slow going. There's not really a ton that can go wrong quickly. Especially, because we're approaching winter. I mean, we get a lot of our precipitation in June and October, November. If we have a winter like we did last year, our precipitation only comes in the form of snow. Last year, it snowed from November 3rd or 4th for 3 days straight, and winter was here. Everybody who's lived in this area that I know, and I know a lot of people now, I've been here for 3 years, has told me they have only in one time saw a winter like that, and they said it was at some time in the 90s. But that was an anomalous winter. And I follow the Farmer's Almanac, and they say this winter is going to be more mild. So I'm kind of fingers crossed, hoping for that, preparing for the worst, but hoping for the best. So yeah, that's how this is going. Let me show you one other thing, and then we'll wrap this video up. All right, so you can see this bench area, and you can see how it's all saturating in now. And I made it kind of climb up a bit there so that I'm going to make that into sort of a ramp you can walk down on. I put some rocks between these trees. But I'm going to try to, and I'll do this in the spring. And in order to do this, I might have to drain the pond a bit. We'll see. But this shelf area is going to be my regen zone for this pond. And so I've got still quite a bit of landscaping that I have to do with it. And the ground's still soft in some spots as it's settling, but it's hardening up. Like this area here, walking on here now is quite packed. It's really cool. But this area isn't. And so next year I'm going to have to landscape this, but the idea is that there's this whole shelf, and it'd be mostly level, that goes around the whole pond, and there'll be gravel on top of it, basically drain rock, gravel, and then there'll be some piping on the inside of it, and you'll have it tees off and then it comes up, and it's a collection point, just like in a swimming pool, where stuff will drop into, and it's your filter, basically. It's the way of circulating the water, but aerating it and filtering it. And so that's going to go in eventually. I'm not going to try to do that before winter. It's just, to do that kind of a task and to focus on that at this point with all these other things that are more important, it's not worth it. And that's what you have to sometimes ask yourself, whether you're on a homestead or a market farm or anything like that, is when the time crunch is coming for winter and you look at, say, 10 things that you absolutely have to do before winter, and then you've got maybe 20 things that you'd like to get done, but they're not as important because maybe they can be done over the winter, or they don't really matter because you don't need them to be done until spring next year. You have to create sort of a triage of things that you want to focus on. And so right now I've got a number of things that I would be most prudent for me to finish before the snow lands. And I don't need to go through that list with you guys. You can kind of make your own list up and take this information, and maybe it can help you. But you have to really prioritize things on the consequence. What is the consequence of them not being done? And then that's how you weigh everything once you get to that triage moment. And you experience this on market farms all the time when there's crunch times for harvests, getting things in freezers or whatever it could be. You really, really have to prioritize your tasks and focus on the things that are going to have the longest tail effect and most benefit from them. So again, for me to spend days, perhaps a week, building the circulation system for this pond will have no benefit to me in the short term. It won't have any benefit to me for 6 months at best. And to do it now would be not worth the time. And so that's an example of how I prioritize things is what's important now and what can I benefit from going forward, so that in a way you stack functions, so that tasks you do, you're not just doing meaninglessly. And it's sometimes easy to get caught up in those things on a homestead, because like on this project, we have so many things to do and there's so many constant things being done at once that you can sometimes get wrapped up in the minutia, where you just get excited about a thing and then you just jump into it. And that's a shortfall of mine. That's often what happens to me. And I have to remind myself to prioritize this sort of triage of tasks that are more important. And for myself, every morning, that's looking at my list, some things spilled over from yesterday, and then I prioritize what needs to get done today, so that I can keep moving the big projects that need to get done before winter forward. So I'll leave it there for this one, folks. We'll see you guys in the next one.
Thanks for watching, folks. If you want to learn any more about the products and services that we offer, head over to freedomfarmers.com. We can teach you how to get on the land and everything else from there.